What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So as you all know, today is indeed Wednesday, which means the new summit is now live in Motorfest. And with that, we are going to have the Lotus Emira. This is going to be the Gold Shadow Edition. It is going to have an interesting livery design on it and stuff like that. I believe there is a kit of some sort, I think. Then we're also going to have the gold window tint as well, money and XP after that. And then we are then going to have a lovely smoke. And then finally, the last thing is going to be the Halloween mood kit, which I would say people might be interested in that, maybe. Honestly, guys, I have said this before, but I really do hope the next season is going to have better rewards. But honestly, at this rate, I don't even see it, man. But besides that, though, in this summit, though, it is going to be fully focused on Street Tier 2 and Lotus. So if you are looking for other vehicles, do not worry. Lotus is the only thing you are going to be running. Funny part is, guys, I am going to be real here clicking on this event. The only car I basically use in every event, besides the one that require you to use like the Exige here, I pretty much use the Evora GTE on all of them. No pro settings or anything. I did end up using this score breaker set here for the skills. It is going to be 3 of 7, 50%, 70% on skilled. It is easily going to get you exactly what you need on all of them. Besides that, though, I did end up using a chemist set, extra pump and pure on everything else, including the escape and the events. So I would recommend trying that out if you are struggling. Besides that, though, as I did mention before, though, both of the slaloms are going to be very easy to do. All you guys will have to do is throw on that half score breaker, start off, hit the objective. You'll get 157,000 points without even trying. To be honest, these are going to be very brainless. For the escape here, you are going to recognize this one. You basically start off. Now, what I would recommend doing, though, is going around the set objective, going down the road a bit, then turning around, hitting the objective, going left immediately, following that, taking the shortcut, heading down the road until you can get to the highway, jump on that, and that's pretty much it. To be honest, this one is going to be fairly easy as well. Nothing too insane going on. The biggest thing is kind of picking the Lotus that you'd like to use. I did end up using the Evora, and that would seem to do pretty dang good. For the loaned event here on the top left, though, you guys are going to be able to use the car, which I will show right here. This thing is going to look pretty dope. I do admit that. I really hope this car is actually decent. The handling on this thing is a bit wonky. It is going to be base settings, so it's probably not that surprising. And yeah, besides that, guys, there's nothing too insane going on with this car besides the livery. And it's obviously going to have like some custom rims or wheels, whatever you want to call them, on there. Overall, though, that event is going to be fairly simple. And to be honest, most of the events in this summit, dude, like I'm going to say it, they're all honestly fairly simple. You guys will probably recognize every single one of them, so you're probably going to have an idea on all of it. The biggest thing is watching out for your nitros, keeping your speed up, making sure you guys are watching the corners and stuff, looking out for some shortcuts here and there because some of the events are going to have them, and they're pretty much designed in some ways to make you use the shortcuts, like the one event in the summit here. That one is definitely going to want you to pretty much use the shortcut, and that way, you're going to be able to be faster on it either way there. But overall, though, guys, this summit is fairly straightforward, mainly focused on Street Tier 2. Do let me know what you guys think about this car in the comments below. I would say people might like it. They might not. They're probably going to jump on and maybe do the summit for it. Overall, though, this summit was fairly easy to do. And I admit, if you are looking to get this vehicle, maybe people might not even bother doing this one because we are going to have the Prestige shop after all.